Hey everyone, it's MrAddOil again, helping you fight today for your better tomorrow. So today we're going to kind of finish up the series about why an emergency fund is important, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons why I believe that you should have and build a strong emergency fund. The first reason is when you have a strong emergency fund, you have the power to say no. Have you ever been in a situation where it's really hard for you to say no because you can't say yes to the things that you want? You could be limited by, it doesn't always have to be money, but usually money is the greatest use case for why it's hard for you to say no to something. It might be saying no to a job that you hate, but you can't really say no to that because you need that job in order to provide for yourself, versus saying no immediately now so that you can learn new skills, go back to school, or do something that requires money to change your current circumstances. But you just don't have the power to say no at that time because you just don't have the financial foundation or a solid emergency fund to do that. So reason number one, an emergency fund allows you to say no to the things that you hate and it allows you to say yes to the things that you actually want. So reason number two of why you want to get an emergency fund. You will be way less stressed, and then it will just be much better for your well-being. Being in debt, not having money to put food on the table or just like pay for your rent is very stressful. I have a couple friends or know people who've just been living paycheck to paycheck. Imagine if they lost their job, something happened to their health. Just think about the amount of stress that they'll be in just because they don't have a safety net to fall back to. That will just create a lot of stress. And that stress isn't just contained in yourself, it also affects the relationships that you have around in your life. Like, it could be friends, family, your significant other. Whenever you are in a financial trouble, it strains a relationship around you because you might be asking your friends for money, your family, and then that just creates tension for those relationships. And then that also adds on to the amount of stress that you'll feel at the time. Trust me, it's not a great place to be in. So that's reason number two why you want to have a good emergency fund, to be less stressed and to protect your well-being. So reason number three, you want to have a good emergency fund because you can only rely on yourself. Meaning that you might not come from a really great family background where you can like stay at your parents' place and then not pay rent, or you just don't have maybe really financially sound or responsible friends around you who can lend you a buck if you need it. Like, maybe you're in that environment where nobody has an emergency fund and no one has financial discipline, so you can only rely on yourself. So in those circumstances, you got to really invest in yourself ahead of time so that your future self will thank your present self for putting extra money into that bank, into your savings account, so that when something happens in life, at least you can depend on yourself. All thanks to your current self acting right now and building that financial safety net. So reason number three, you want to have a good emergency fund because you can only depend on yourself. So reason number four, another reason why it's good to have an emergency fund is because you might want to do a career change, and that costs not just money, but a lot of time. But money really helps in those circumstances where you want to get out of a job that you hate. For me, a personal story is I've been doing sales for the last 2-3 years, just cold calling, smiling, dialing. It's not a fun job. So I knew that during that time, everyday grinding, just being that telemarketer that will call you and then you'll be that person picking up that phone and just hanging up on me. That just built a lot of stress, and I was just extremely unhappy with that situation. So from that moment on, I just started building and just got super motivated in taking my spare money or budgeting really well and taking that money and building up my emergency fund so I can take action and potentially change my career, which just foreshadow, it's gonna happen, and I'm gonna create other videos around that, so stay tuned. So reason number 4 of why you wanna have an emergency fund, so that you can switch careers if you hate your job, like I do. So reason number 5 for you, why you wanna have a solid emergency fund. Maybe one day, I mean, you just have the entrepreneurial bug inside of you where you really want to create your own business, to work for yourself, be your own boss one day, right? Or now in this day and age, you want to be a solopreneur, like actually have something of your own that you could rely on other than a 9-to-5 to give you income, right? So in order for you to get there, you still want to be in a place where you can fall back to something in the event that your entrepreneurial ventures do not work out, right? I mean, if you don't have anything to fall back on, let's say like in the past, for the past reasons that I gave, one of them applies to you, like maybe you can only depend on yourself. If that is the reason, having an emergency fund will really empower you when you're trying to go out and do your own thing, because if all else fails, at least you have something to fall back on that you created for yourself. So reason number 5, in the future, maybe you want to start your own business, be a solopreneur. An emergency fund will really empower you to do that. And your future self will thank you a lot for it. Reason number 6 of why you want to have an emergency fund. You might happen upon a really unfortunate situation where your health is at risk, where you get really sick, where you happen upon an illness for a long period of time where you just cannot work. I know that in the past I got hit by a car before, and then I just couldn't do anything for like a month or two. Like I broke 2 lower ribs and I just couldn't go to work, and that was really frustrating. But luckily I was in college at the time, so my burn rate each month was really low. But think about it, like you're an adult now, hopefully. I mean, you don't have to be an adult for you to watch this video, but I'm an adult now, and then I have to take care of myself, right? So I hope this never happens, but if I got injured at my current age, man, that would suck. And then if I can't work, oh my gosh, that will suck so bad, and I'll be so stressed. So this is why reason number 6 is super important. You want to have this emergency fund so that when something happens to your health, you get injured, you have some money to fall back on so that you don't have to get into mountains of debt and be more stressed, which would affect your health even more in a bad way. So reason number 7 of why you want to have a really good, solid emergency fund is because debt is very bad, and debt is scary, and it will cripple your life. I know people, friends, family who've been just their whole life never ever being able to rip debt from their lifestyle. It's just there. They were never able to pay it off, whether that's student loans, credit card debt, or just loans that they took privately or from other relatives. Like they just been stuck with that debt, and it's just made them a slave to this mountain of debt. Like it affects their health, their mental health. It's just a really bad place to be. When you don't have an emergency fund and if something happens, the first thing that you would probably do is use your credit card, right? Or once you max out your credit card, you can't apply for new credit cards. You might take loans and find other avenues of making a quick buck by essentially borrowing money from someone. And in those situations, you just enslaved yourself and you're making someone else rich by paying these high interest rates. So reason number 7 of why you want to have a really good emergency fund is to stay away from debt. Having an emergency fund will prevent you from accumulating debt, which would enslave your life and make your life really miserable. So beware. and get an emergency fund. Reason number 8 of why an emergency fund might be a good idea. Maybe, you might be working for a long time and you might need a break from your job. When you have, in my last video, I talked about how important it is to have like a 1 year's worth of emergency funds just laying around. If you had that, you can just quit your job and then take an extended vacation for like 3 months, refresh yourself, find yourself again. Maybe you're in a midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, or something happened where you just need rest and you just don't want to work. In normal circumstances, like the average person in the United States can't do that because they don't even have $1,000 in their bank account. But imagine if you had a year's worth of emergency fund, liquid cash just sitting in your savings account. If you really needed to take time for yourself, away from your job or just away from your current life, whatever that is, and maybe go away on a trip to refresh, rejuvenate, and find yourself again, you have that option. So reason number 7 of why you want to have an emergency fund, you can just take a break from your job and go on vacation for a while and just refresh. So reason number 9 of why you want to have a good emergency fund. Your only stream of income is from your 9-to-5 job. I'm gonna be honest, right now, I'm kind of in that situation and it sucks. Let's say I got laid off or fired, or for whatever reasons that I gave already of why I can't work, I just have one stream of income. So you can think of an emergency fund as like a second stream of income. It's like having emergency batteries or emergency generator in your house where it can generate electricity if there's a blackout. So think of an emergency fund like that, where if you're relying on a 9-to-5 job as your only source of income, an emergency fund can be the second stream of income if you ever needed that. In a situation, let's compare two people. Like person A, only depending on their 9-to-5 job, they're living paycheck to paycheck. If they just did not have that job anymore, they have 0 stream of income. Whereas compared to person B, who has some sort of emergency fund, let's say they have like 3 to 4 months worth of emergency fund. That 3 to 4 months is like a backup generator of an extra stream of income. It might be limited, but when they face a similar situation where they got laid off or they got fired or something happens to their 9-to-5 job, they have 3 to 4 months worth of money, 3 to 4 months worth of an additional stream of income to sustain them. So reason number 9 of why you want to get an emergency fund, because your 9-to-5 job is your only source right now. And lastly, reason 10 of why you want to have an emergency fund. It's just a sense of accomplishment for you to have that, right? Especially if you were disciplined enough to build 1 year's worth of emergency fund. Like I mentioned, the average American or the average person living in the United States, I think in my blog, I did some research, and then it said that only 39% of people have $1,000 in their savings account or checking account, right? So, that just really sucks. But imagine if you were able to be disciplined, put in the work, and finally muster up or accumulate enough money that can sustain you for 12 months of expenses. That's a great place to be, and you should feel very proud of yourself. So reason 10, it's a very simple reason, right? It's pretty hard to get there, but it's a simple reason. Reason number 10, you want to have an emergency fund so you can have that sense of accomplishment in knowing that you made an investment for your current self and also your future self if something were to happen and you needed someone to fall back on. You can fall back on your current self who's building that emergency fund for your future self. So question of the day, which of the 10 reasons do you resonate with the most? Or do you not agree with any of the reasons I've mentioned for having an emergency fund? If so, please leave a comment down below so that you can share it with the community, and also I can read over it and give you some feedback or just learn from you. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, this is MrAddOil, helping you guys fight today for your better tomorrow. I'll see you in the next video.